which would you recommend to most people, a blade or a mallet?
We are surrounded by some of the finest blades and mallets in the world right now.
Again, it is a very individual thing, and that's why you really need to go and get fitted for a putter, because they're going to offer different things. I'm even saying mallet, there's a very wide category of mallets. So you could have face balance mallet, you could have a mallet with toe hang. Mallets typically have a higher moment of inertia, so it can give a player a little bit more sense of feel in terms of stability. But then sometimes when the moment of inertia gets too high, there can be a downside to that, where you actually lose some stability on off-center hits. So, yeah, if the MOI gets too high, it actually hurts you on your start line. Right. So I would say if you really struggle with speed control and you hit off-center, and a mallet could help. If you struggle more on start line and you hit a lot off centre, then a blade could be better.
Right, okay.
But again, there's different categories of blades. Is it centre shafted blade? Plumber's neck, different degrees of toe hang. So they've all got different torque profiles. So this is where you really need to go and get fitted.
Yeah. That's interesting. That. No, I kind of just presumed that, like, the bigger you get, the more MY you get, the better that will be with.
There's a law of diminishing returns with moment of inertia, because typically as the CG goes further back, it creates more MOI, bigger footprint. But yeah, there can be a side effect to it.
All right, nice. I love learning.
You mentioned, yeah, that's great stuff. You mentioned about, like,
Sam's not really bothered about that one, is he?
I'm trying to juggle all these jobs. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this responsibility. I'm looking at levels and all sorts. You mentioned there about people using blades if they struggle with, like, starting it online.
Yeah.
How important would you say, like, alignment on the ball and really sort of focusing on that is?
Yeah, well, you mentioned before about kind of moving Scotty away from using the line. Yeah. And this year, I've been super committed to actually using the line every single time. Yeah. And, like, making it part of my routine. It's worked to an extent. But I've been told this recently, again, I went down to Jamie Donaldson, Aim Point, and had a bit of a lesson through that. And he was trying to get me to almost move away from using the line. Yeah. And it's just kind of like pick on my brain a little bit. Like, what are the actual positives and the negatives? And, like, what have you found?
Well, I've encouraged players to use the line and not use the line. So, like, when I first started working with Justin Rose, I encouraged him to use the line of the ball. And a lot of it is going to depend on the biases that you have. Like, if you struggle with aim, for one, then using a line can help you. And you might aim it really well on a straight put, but it doesn't mean you can aim it well on a breaking put. Very often there's certain puts that people find particularly challenging to aim on. So that's where a line could help you. But then you've also got to read greens reasonably well. Now, some people can be very poor in terms of consciously where they think that the line is. And then when they stand over the putt, they can be better reading or feeling the break from there. Now, if you've already lined up the ball to a poor line and you step in and you feel it somewhere else, then there's conflict. So you need to be a fairly good conscious green reader, I believe, to use a line well or feel comfortable to reduce that conflict. The other thing is some people can have a perceptual bias. So very often I'll hear, and I'm the same, if I have a straight line on a straight putt, when I stand over it, it will typically look left to me.
Right, yeah.
So that can throw people off. If you don't understand why or how you manage that. And then it's difficult to trust your stroke when the line, you feel like you're aiming miles left. So there's lots of different things to consider. And then even into, like, the thing with Scotty is when the line wasn't there, it just enabled him to kind of be less into the start line or where that line's pointing, thinking, second guessing his aiming, and just kind of be more into his target. So it kind of lightened the mental load. Yeah. And enabled him to be more target aware, which then would help his speed. The other thing is the feedback from the line. If you don't hit, I'm going to say if you don't hit a perfect putt, you could hit a great putt and get poor feedback from. Because the line really only gives you feedback on spin. Doesn't give you feedback necessarily on start line.
Right, okay.
It's giving you feedback on the tilt of the axis. So you can hit a good putt and you can get negative feedback.
There you go.
Yeah. So you've got to be able to, there's certain things that you need to be able to manage, and a lot of it can be mentally how it fits into your routine, but there's certain physical things that I think you need to be able to do, like read a green fairly well, not have a huge perceptual bias, and also line up the line well. Like a lot of people can't line up the line.
Yeah.
They will, but they don't know that yet. So they line it at the hole, but it's actually aiming somewhere else. But to them, it looks like they're lining up.
Yeah.
At the
perception. It's like it's kind of wild. I'm the same as you a little bit, where I will line it up, and I'll line it up, and I know it's straight, but I'll get over the ball and like feels left.
Yeah.
And like the biggest challenge I wanted to stick to it this year is just trusting it.
Yeah.
And overcoming it, and just telling myself, no, it is aimed straight.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say that's common.
Yeah.
So for me, I have that same bias. I manage how many times I look at the hole.
Right, okay.
So I will only look once, because the more I look, the more uncomfortable I'll feel.
Right.
So I try, when I step in, just myself, I have an initial look, and I try to not make it too specific to where that line's aiming, more in sort of in and around where I want the ball to enter the hole.
Okay.
And then I come back and I never look again.
You just let it go.
Yeah. I just try and manage my looks, because I will get thrown by that perception of the line because it looks left. So if you understand, and this is where I think you go and have a lesson, get coached.
Yeah.
To understand your biases so that you can manage them. And it's not about being perfect, but like from my experience in working around like these good players, they know they're not perfect, but they understand their golf games and what they need to do to manage it, to be able to go and play well on any given day.
Okay.
So there's for line of the ball, there are lots of things to consider, and it's very much a personal decision, and there's very much a lot to do with in and around how it affects your routine and where it puts your mind in terms of your execution. And if anyone ever says, never use the line of the ball, or you must use the line of the ball, then I would run away from them, because it's not such a case.
God, so many nuggets here. This is great.
It's good. I mean, it does sound like, having that lesson and speaking to someone and getting someone to look at you is much like, there's nothing that's one size fits all, and everything is very specific to that individual. So
I have a friend of mine who's involved in golf, and he takes the mickey out of me because he'll always say, it depends. Because I'll go, well, it depends. So he's always saying, no, it depends. But it does.
It does. But it depends. It does depend.